what has been misinterpreted and what's been wrong, and we've seen it in the recent crisis in 2008, was the assumption that markets have enough regulatory power by themselves to prevent from big collapses from happening. And this is just not so. And this is why, in the end, the government intervened and came out with the rescue plan for the banks and all of that. But again, the ignorance of how systems work was very evident because uh, Stafford, for once, had been warning of the dangers of letting the economic system run totally on its own, dependent only on market forces to provide regulation and balance and self restraint. And clearly, um, the system was out of control for many months, if not several years, and nobody ever did anything because you are working on the assumption that it has to be right because nobody has authority over the market forces.
That that you see, to me, that's a great flaw in Adam Smith's systemic approach. Because in essence, when he says free market and laissez faire, the thing will balance itself through the work of this invisible hand. He was in essence saying that the best control is no control. Now,
Self-control.
pardon me,
He wasn't saying no control. He's saying self-control,
or,
self-organized
or
control.
put it that way, no
Uh-huh.
deliberate control, just self-control by
Okay.
the forces
Okay.
uh, of individuals. Now, from a systemic perspective, and accepting that as a definition of control just for the time being, from a systemic perspective, when it comes to issues of control, I think there's a lesson to be learned from rocket science. Can you imagine sending a space station up into orbit with the idea that once you blast off, it's on its own, it's self-controlled, self-directed? The essence of control in terms of what we're talking about in cybernetics is that in order to control effectively any system, you have to have access to extremely detailed, full, and transparent information about the operation of that system and all its parts. And when you see the control rooms that have been set up by NASA to control its space program, you see the essence of what control really means cybernetically. The control mechanism must have access and be to all information and match the complexity of the system so that you can really make decisions based on knowledge and information about what's happening in the system. So yes, one of the reasons of that the economic system that we have today is so unstable and it keeps on building up and undoing itself and falling apart and is because there's no control element beyond that of the goodwill of the people who are involved, where the goodwill, of course, has turned to greed. Uh, but that's one of the problems with economics that we have is we have no control. That's part of what we have to rethink in rethinking the state and redesigning the democratic institutions that we all agree are what best serves the interests of the people.
Yes, I wouldn't want to give people the idea that we're talking about a centralized control room for the whole country, telling everybody what to do. That's what the Russians try to do with their experiments with large computer systems and their centralized planning that went into their constitution in Russia and in Cuba and in Mexico. we borrow that structure, and you can see the results. Uh, what I guess you and I are talking about is that we need to create a system where all these ideas get applied recursively at different levels of complexity in a way that people solve as many of their own problems as they can, and then you start piling up systems only insofar as um, the remainder of the control necessity appears. And if we do that, we would be maximizing liberty. We would be, I think, this would be the only way to maximize liberty, because one single centralized system cannot know everything uh, at the same time. And even if it did, who would be there to interpret that and then know what to do? Um, Maybe in um, modern sci-fi movies, we get systems which are so large and so complex that they can deal with exabytes, you know, like millions of terabytes at the same time. We still don't have that. Maybe someday we will have something which is very, very um, capable of analyzing a lot of information at the same time. But as for now, we could do much better that we're doing if we only sat down to redesign the government system according to our new capabilities.
Javier, when we talk about control, we're talking about a huge, huge